Chairman, we are on the air.
Good evening and welcome to Burnsville Park and National Resource Commission meeting for March 4, 2013. The first item on the business is for approval of our agenda for this evening. Commissioners, is there any item to add to the agenda?
None for me.
Staff, any items to add?
Nothing from staff, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner, would we have any like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Second. All in favor says aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and the motion approves. The second is citizens' comments. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the commission? Looking at it, none. We'll move to approval of minutes for January 7, 2013. Commissioner, any revision to the meeting, minutes for the meeting?
None for me.
Staff?
Nothing from staff.
Commissioner, would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. All of in favor would say aye.
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 Says no. So motion approved. Next, we'll move for the item number 4, revision of park annual sustainability plan progress report. Presenting this item would be Sue Brass, the city environmental specialist.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. I'm Sue Bast, environmental specialist, and I'm going to be talking about sustainability, what we did last year, and some of the things that we plan on doing this year. Okay. Okay.
Yep.
We'll start. I'd like to go through the slides, the 14 areas that we have in our sustainability plan. And I realize you have quite a few things this evening, so I'll go through fairly quickly some of the slides. Some of them I'll talk to you a little bit more about, but if you have any questions about anything, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer. The first best practice area is environmentally preferable purchasing, and City of Burnsville works hard to purchase environmentally preferable products. One of the things we did this year is purchase banners made out of 100% recycled plastic bottles, and these banners are for our hazardous waste collection day. We put them up so that people know where to bring the different materials. And these are the banners that are made out of the 100% recycled plastic bottles. And then our office supplies, and then promotional materials. And these are pencils. Take one if you'd like. These pencils are made out of old tires. So that's for the environmentally preferable purchasing. Product stewardship, the county and the city together have worked on a program to collect unwanted pharmaceuticals, and that's for safety reasons and also safety as far as not wanting people to take, accidentally take medicine that they shouldn't have, and also it's to make sure that it doesn't get into the hands of someone that shouldn't have pharmaceuticals. So, and then also to dispose of them in an environmentally preferable manner instead of flushing them down the toilet. So the police department in Burnsville collected 2,026 pounds of pharmaceuticals. Pretty impressive for their first year. The greenhouse gas reduction, we did a greenhouse gas inventory last year for the year of 2011, and this I'd like to talk a little bit more about. As you can see on the graph, we've done one for 2005, 2009, and 2011 now. So you can see the trend line. The reason that 2009 it gets bumped up, that red area right there, that is the Performing Arts Center. It was not on the 2005 inventory. So you can see that the trend line without the PAC is headed downward, and even in 2011, it is significantly down even with the Performing Arts Center. And one of the reasons for that, there are many reasons, but one of the big reasons is that the water treatment plant, we purchased variable frequency drive, and that really cut the potable water. In 2009, the electric usage, 67% of what we use the electricity for city operations, 67% of electricity was used for potable water. And because of all the work that was done, now potable water is only 36% of our electric use. And so we increased the pumping of our water 8%, but with 54% less electricity. So that was a significant reduction. Sustainable land use. We've done a number of things in that area, and a lot of it has to do with making sure that we use electronic permits and files instead of paper, and that's reduced the amount of paper that we use. And we've conducted a sustainability policy audit, so we know some of the areas that our ordinance maybe doesn't match our sustainability plan, and we're looking at different ways that we can combine those to make it more of a mesh. Sustainable transportation, done a lot with the street lights, using LED lights, continued to recycle bituminous pavement in our road reconstruction. I believe it was 19,000 pounds that we recycled. And the retrofit program for trucks that helps reduce emissions on some of our older trucks, and we were able to do that with a grant, so not only was the equipment paid for, but also the labor costs. Installed some crosswalk signs throughout the city, and those using solar. Energy efficiency, this is another place that I wanted to talk a little bit about the projects that we've done for City of Burnsville. We've done a number of lighting projects in our buildings, and if you go down to the lower level in that hallway down there of City Hall, we've changed those lights and actually taken out lights and put LED lights in and kept the same illumination and reduced the amount of lights that we have and reduced the amount of electricity that we have. So we've saved over $6,763 in electricity costs and used utility rebates to do that, so using $7,473 of rebates, and then saved 91,423 kilowatt hours. And also, one of the things, and this is $6,763 per year per the life of the fixture, which is right around 10 years. So it's a significant amount of savings. And the labor costs also of changing those, having to go in and change the lights, is significant too. We did some of this work with a fund that we received, a $5,000 sustainability fund, and that was set aside to help us fund projects that maybe there wasn't, it was put in the budget, But if we used a little bit more money, we could buy we could buy the LED lights versus fluorescence, or some other energy efficient fixture rather than just replacing it. So that $5,000 was turned into some significant savings that will go on for the next 10 years. And then we also purchased the variable frequency drive for the water treatment plant and used a $15,000 rebate for that too. So a lot of savings, and not only financial savings but also energy savings. Last year, City of Burnsville adopted a sustainable infrastructure policy, and that in that way we'll look at the CIP projects and and figure out a way we can design those projects in a more sustainable manner. And we can look at those projects right when at the get-go, so that we will use it as, we'll look at it and put those design features in it from the beginning and not kind of put them after, as an afterthought. So we're working on that right now. We're looking at different projects that are coming up this year and making them more sustainable. Community Health offered a number of classes, free classes that residents can participate in, hosted a 5K race, and we partnered with different organizations to promote a healthier lifestyle. Recycling, we recycled our own holiday lights, 291 pounds of our own holiday lights, and then also hosted a Recycle Your Holiday Lights for residents, and held a shoe recycling event. That's always a big event, and people bring shoes to the ice center, and they participate very well in that event. And we worked on different recycling at different events, at the International Festival, at Night to Unite parties, and working to make it more of a, not just when you're at home, but when you're out and about at an event, that recycling is there too. Healthy urban forests. There was we received a Conservation Partner Legacy Grant to restore 22 acres of remnant prairie and aspen stands. And one of the things that the forester did was to plant bare root trees in a Missouri gravel bed, and they built that gravel bed and were able to keep the trees in there and then plant them when they have time and when the weather is appropriate. Collected a lot of buckthorn through a couple of programs that we have, and offered native plantings at the tree sale. Sustainability education. There were 4 nature walks for our citizens of City of Burnsville, and some eco tours for seniors, and then we also gave a number of presentations to schools excuse me, and sent sustainability tips of the month emails to employees. There's we offered a Blue Thumb program last year, and there's a Blue Thumb program going on right now. So that has worked out well, and had residents apply for grants, water resources enhancement grants. And because of all the work that City of Burnsville has accomplished for stormwater we have received a Blue Star Award, and that's pretty impressive. There aren't a lot of cities that have that award. We've partnered with numerous organizations to further our sustainability efforts, and worked with volunteers and University of Minnesota students to do a number of things. The policy audit that I mentioned before, and worked with U of M students to design brochures for Unite to Unite. The City of Burnsville has a sustainability team, and the team comes from different departments in the city, and we get together about every other month and work on different projects. And one of the things that we did this year was to apply for a Minnesota Green Step Cities Award. And we received the award. So we are at a step 2. There's step 1 and step 2, and now a step 3. And this is the award that we received. It's wood from the hood, so I'll pass that around. And toured the River Center and coordinated a Clean Up Your Office Day for employees. So that was 2012. Any questions about 2012? No?
I have a question. If
Mr. Chair?
Yep. For a Blue Thumb Awards, you said that the city received the award. What was
Yes.
the criteria for that award to be given to a city? In order for it to get it, do you have to do ABCDs or what?
Mr. Chair, yes. We had to fill out an application for that award. Terry, maybe you know the specifics of that. I know that Jeremy Strelo worked hard to do that.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, in essence, there's a checklist of things you can do for stormwater management, best management practices, and we submit the practices that we are utilizing here in Burnsville, and if you meet a certain threshold, and I don't remember what that is off the top of my head, but then you are awarded this Blue Star City Award. And we've been pretty progressive with the things that we do to keep our lakes clean, public education programs, pollution prevention. So it's all of those sorts of best management practices that they consider.
Congratulations, guys. It's a lot of work. One more question. So you also talked about changing electricity light bulbs and everything else. Do we have a criteria that we go on changing that area? Let's say you have given an example of changing the light bulbs downstairs. So do we follow a criteria where we say, okay, we need to, versus going upstairs or going to ice arena, do we have a policy, procedure? How do we make a decision saying, okay, next time we're going to change this? And what is the cost for it?
Mr. Chair, yes. One of the things I'm going to be talking about is the environmentally preferable purchasing policy that we just adopted a month ago, 2 months ago, January. And that states that if the price is right, that we buy the environmentally preferable product. It's all appliances and products purchased by the city for which the U.S. EPA Energy Star certification is available, and such products they are also financially feasible. And so exit signs, appliances, refrigerators, lighting systems, all those kinds of things. So one of the things that our facilities person does is look at the payback, and we'll take a look at all the different options available and then look at, what kind of payback it is and whether it's financially to our advantage.
If I can add on to that, Commissioners, we try to see a 3 to 5 year payback on those investments. So some are longer. There are certain practices where if we want to test them or we want to use it, this facility, this complex is kind of our model facility. So there are some exceptions to that, but generally we're looking for a 3 to 5 year payback.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions.
Let's go for it.
Stuart, mentioned about water quality information in water bills, or something to that effect.
That we electronically sent out the water bills.
Yeah, and there was something about, I thought it was something about sending out water quality information with the water bill. Maybe I misunderstood it.
I'm looking for.
Here, right
Yes,
there.
this one.
Okay.
Sent out water quality electronically. I was wondering, what if you're in an association or a condo? I mean, if you don't get a water bill, is there no way to reach out to them?
It's to the customers. So it's residents that receive water bills and businesses that receive water bills.
I mean, if you're in a townhouse, you wouldn't get the bill directly because we don't pay it like where we live. We don't get the bill. So
Commissioner
it'd be nice to know the rest of the
Stuber,
people would know about it, but
we also try to put all that information in the Burnsville Bulletin also.
Okay.
So we try to get it out a couple of different ways.
okay.
But this is the first year we've ever done it electronically. Usually it's a separate paper, and so that was significant for our reduction of paper.
Okay. I was at a workshop. You probably already do this. The city has a workshop last week about. They were talking about turning off computers at night, and so quite a substantial savings in electricity if you got if the city has a policy on that or.
Commissioner Stuber, yes, I don't know if it's actually a written policy, but we have had a campaign about, in fact, that was one of the employee tips was vampire eyes, the whole idea of if there's a light on that you're using electricity. And so we have we went around actually, and one of the employees looked and found out how many monitors were on, how many speakers were left on, different things, and really worked how many lights were left on, and to get employees to turn off your monitor, turn off your speaker, and try and save some money, turn the lights off. We had a lights out campaign. When you leave your office, flick the light off. Or conference room.
So,
Any other questions from the commission? If you have, I'm sorry, continue. Thank you.
Sorry. I was just going to quickly go through the proposed activities for next year, and we have been researching recycling in the parks, and that's a difficult problem to solve. We're looking at various ways to do that, and have met with 3 different cities, Eagan and Apple Valley, and talking to the parks people and trying to figure that one out. We've talked to the Fire Muster Committee, and we're going to be starting a recycling program at the Fire Muster. And so that even the bigger events, we'll have recycling at the bigger events. Continuing to reduce the amount of salt we use, we're looking into that, and exploring implementing a idling policy. We're taking a look at it. And then, as I had mentioned, the sustainable infrastructure policy, we're just starting to work on that and see how that can be put into our all the projects that we have coming up. And then I am going to be talking about the environmentally preferable purchasing policy, and one of the things we do want to do this year and make an effort, and Commissioner Stuber, I think this is what maybe you were getting at too, is to communicate our activities to the public, do a better job with that. And then also continue the LED installation, because it is such a good thing to do economically and environmentally. The environmentally preferable purchasing policy that we just adopted in January reflects our commitment to sustainability, and it talks about recycled paper and recycled content products, and that we would purchase, and we do purchase recycled content paper in both City Hall and at the Maintenance Center, and we need to continue to do that. And then it also talks about waste minimization, trying to look at the packaging of the things of the products that we purchase, if at all possible, to reduce any kind of waste that comes with the product. And then, as I said to you, talk to you about the energy-saving products. Whenever possible, purchase Energy Star certified products. And then water-saving products, that's important too. And then the cleaning products. And City of Burnsville does do a good job purchasing environmentally preferable cleaning products. And that concludes the sustainability update. Any other questions?
I have one question about recycling in the parks. I know that's really a hard item, especially, people don't bring their home activities to the park, but if an organization wanted to rent a city park for a large event, is there anything that can you put anything in their agreement that they must provide recycling for the people that attend?
Commissioner Stuber, that's a great idea, and I think we have discussed that for possibility of putting that into the rental agreement. And I know City of Eagan has done that and then offered them a bag that they can put their recycling in. And then when the city staff comes to the park, and they can pick up that bag of recycling. So I think that's a great idea.
Comes in, or
Pardon me?
you give a bag when the people come in? Oh.
Yes.
Good.
One of the things, if I can just add on to that, we have been working with our larger community festivals, community events, slowly trying to get them to offer recycling as part of the major events. So I think we're working with the fire muster this year. So
Right.
And you guys worked with International Festival last year,
Yes.
parts of it.
And I think we do Wednesdays in the park, and we have recycling at some of the smaller events too.
How about art and all that jazz? That's
Yeah, I think we had recycling at all that jazz. Yeah.
I know we did. I remember help putting the boxes
Oh,
together
okay.
for recycling.
Good.
Sounds good. Do we have a motion, or are we this one was just for information?
Commissioners, this is for information. We just want to check in with you and see if you think we're on the right track. We're following our sustainability plan. The only reason you would make a motion is if you felt like we should be going in a little bit different direction and had some guidance for staff to change our approach. Otherwise, no motion is needed.
I'm good with it. Commissioners, what is your take on it?
yeah, I think it was good. Good job.
Everybody? Well, thank you very much,
you.
too, for coming over. Appreciate it. The next item will be reviewing the park capital projects for 2013. Presenting will be Terry Scholes, Director of Park and National Resources. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As you are aware, the city does have a Parks Capital Improvement Plan. That plan actually inventories all of the major elements of our park system, assigns a life expectancy and a replacement cost for each of those major elements. And it's really a 35-year plan. So our lights on our ball fields, our fences, our parking lots, our trails, any major item that doesn't get funded out of it, that's over $10,000, we have an inventory and we track when they need to be replaced. What gets folded into the budget then is the upcoming 5 years of that plan. We don't show 35 years in the budget document, but we do show the upcoming 5 years. So you will see that Parks Capital Improvement Plan in the city budget if you were to look it up on our website. And so we have that plan in there for 2013 through 2017, and I included a copy of that document in your background packets. Today we want to talk about the 2013 projects. So we have this large 5-year plan, or plan that looks out over time, and then as it gets closer to being the upcoming year, of course, we go out in the field and we verify that those things actually need to be replaced. So as they get closer, we usually go out and field verify. In this case, we looked at 2013, 2014. Do the projects still need to happen? Can some of them be postponed? Do some of them need to be moved up? So we are going to share with you, staff would like to share with you our 2013 projects. We have 3 funding categories that we break those projects into when we put together our Parks Capital Plan. One is renovation, and that has a budget in 2013 of $1.2 million. That's a lot of money. We have a lot of infrastructure out there. That is just money to replace the amenities we have in our parks now. That's not building anything new. That's just taking care of what we have now. We postponed some of these items, so that seems like a little bit bigger number than we've had in the past. When the recession hit in 2009, we postponed some items, and now we're trying to catch up on that a little bit. And council is slowly ramping up that funding so we can get back on track with our capital plan. Then there's a category, excuse me, we call improvements. That is for new items and master planning documents. I'll explain that later in detail, but we have $90,000 budgeted for that. And then we have trail system development. So new trail sections that we intend to build. That's not maintaining what we have. Again, trails that we have would be funded under renovation. But we do have a trail master plan, as the commission knows, and we would put money into that item for new trail development. We have not put new trail money in for several years, and we don't have any money in for the next couple of years. I've shared with you in the past the next trail improvement will be 2015, 2016, when we do the trail between 35W and Cedar Avenue along Black Dog Road, and that will be a regional trail. What I'd like to do then is take you through the 2013 park projects. We have a category called general park amenities, and we allocate money there. It's a lump sum of $20,000 for picnic tables, bleachers, benches, things that smaller ticket items that we need to replace on an ongoing basis. We also added an additional funds in that item this year to replace the kiosk at Crystal Boat Ramp that was put in about 30 years ago, and that sign, we actually had the Crystal Lake Improvement Association ask us to take a look at replacing that, and they're partnering with us on that project, so we do plan to replace that sign out of this budget also. We have a lot of bituminous resurfacing planned this year. There are 2 basketball courts, one in Coventry Court Park and the other in North River Hills Park. We will be resurfacing those basketball courts. Then we have a total of 13 different parks. They're listed there. I'm not going to read them all to you, but there are 13 parks where we will be replacing either trail sections within that park and a parking lot, or one or the other. But there is a fairly substantial amount of bituminous planned in the park system this year. I'm going to talk more about that in a little bit later, because actually that number is coming in higher than we anticipated. We do engineering estimates before we go out to bid, and it looks like we're about $300,000 short in that line item to do the work we feel we need to do. I'm going to talk to you a little bit later on about where I think we could come up with that money and maybe postpone another project. Other projects, we have the fencing planned to be replaced at Black Dog Park. It's the fencing that runs along the railroad tracks, if you're familiar with that park. Basically runs east to west. We'll take a look at that, and we only repair or replace what we need to. So we're pretty frugal. We don't just come in and replace everything if we don't need to. So we'll spot check that and only do that in sections. Our lighting systems are on about a 30 to 35 year replacement schedule. So we will be replacing the Nob Hill parking lot lights. And as Sue mentioned in her presentation, anytime we replace lights, we look at the LED option. Almost without an exception now, LED makes sense in almost all cases. So I can't remember the last time it didn't make financial sense for us. At least the last 3 years, we've always been using LED fixtures. And that's what we'll look at for Nob Hill in the parking lot. We do have 2 play equipment pieces to be replaced in Burnhaven and Rolling Meadows Park. Playground equipment is on about a 19 to 20 year replacement schedule. It's programmed for 18 years. These parks have been in for 18 or 19 years, so they're a little actually past when they should be replaced. So typically they're replaced pretty well worn out and need to be updated really to meet the new playground standards, and so we'll be replacing the playground structures at Burnhaven and Rolling Meadows Park. Structures and buildings. We have, commissioners, when we've been on our tour to Lac La Vanne, I've shared with you the problems we have at the concession stand and restroom facility. It is undersized. To be honest, it was probably undersized the day we opened the complex, but we've had to supplement it with some portable restrooms. That's okay, but a lot of people aren't crazy about using a portable restroom if they don't have to. So a lot of things have worn out there. It's time to replace many elements of it, and it just makes sense to us to take care of all those problems at this time and remodel and renovate the entire concession stand and restroom facility at Lac La Vanne Park. That's the building that's in the center of the ball field complex. We had planned on doing that along with replacing some of the fencing, irrigation systems, scoreboards. That park is over 30 years old, so everything's worn out. And we were going to do that over the course of 2013 and 2014, if you remember our discussions. As I mentioned before, we need to borrow some money to get that bituminous work done. We think the bituminous work is probably a higher priority right now. So what staff would like to do and is recommending to you and to council is that we postpone that Lac La Vanne concession stand work until 2014, make it a 2014-2015 project, and basically bump it back a year, and then take the bulk of those funds and put it into bituminous work this year. And then we'll have to bump something back in the schedule in the next year or two, to make up. Ultimately, everything gets pushed back when we do that. But we think that can work. We could use that. We'll retain some money to start the planning process, the design process for the concession stand later this winter, so we can start doing the design work and then be ready to go in 2014, 2015. Because we don't want to move all of the, we can't afford to have the teams leave for a year. We've got to really phase this in over a couple of years so that we can keep our softball programs going and remodel the facility at the same time. So it'll be a project that will have to be phased. Then the other item for structures and buildings is some renovation, and I apologize, I omitted this from your background. So this item wasn't in your background, but there is funding in the amount of $50,000 to do some renovation work at the Red Oak building. Our plans are to replace the windows. We replaced the roof last year, and we need to replace some of the siding. We're going to re-side the building, new windows, and probably the interior of the restrooms. We'll do all of that, assuming we have enough money to do all that work. So that's our plan for renovations to the Red Oak building. Again, that's another building. Much of our system was built in the early 80s or before, and so we had a big Parks bond referendum in '82. So you're seeing a lot of these buildings that were funded through that bond referendum now hitting 30 years of age, and they need to be renovated. Tennis court renovations, we have two sets of tennis courts that we plan to do some renovations. We're going to try a new process this year. We did, in the past, we've done a mill and overlay to deal with cracks in our tennis courts. We did that in Neal Park, if you remember, actually just 2 years ago. And you'll see it's back on the list again to have the cracks repaired. Shortly after the winter after we did that bituminous work at Neal was a very tough winter on tennis courts. There wasn't a lot of snow cover. It was the really mild winter that we all missed this year. But what it does is lets the sun gets at the asphalt and there's a lot of change in temperature. And if you have a situation where there's some runoff or rain getting in the sub-base, you can have some cracking. And we had that happen at Neal Park. We did a lot of checking and wanted to make sure that the contractors did what we asked them to do, and they did. It's just a fact that can happen to tennis courts in Minnesota, and in particular Neal Park's a tough one for us because of the subsoils that are underneath it. It's just something that we couldn't afford to repair. So we're going to go back in and fix those cracks that we have at Neal Park, and then we also have Pahasapa Park, and we're going to try some new fiberglass system to repair cracks and see it's a little less expensive than a complete mill and overlay, and we're getting reports from other communities that it's holding up pretty well. So we're going to try that this year at those two facilities. The park improvements is that other category. I showed you we had $90,000 for park improvements. That's broken down into two categories called basic amenities, where we set aside $20,000 for projects. It's fairly common for us to have a community group come and say we want to do a partnership project with the city of Burnsville. Some years it's building a community garden. This year, we've had the folks who run the dog park at Alamagnet come to us. They'd like to do some renovations there. They are willing to do some volunteer labor, and they have done fundraising in the past, but they would like to make the small dog park area a little larger, and then we'd like to fix up that entrance into that park. We've got some stormwater issues. When we have large rain events, the overflow is actually right through the entrance to the dog park. So we'd like to, so we use those funds to kind of work with groups that bring up projects and want to partner with us, and to deal with problems that come up kind of unexpectedly, like the stormwater problem we've discovered at the entrance there. So that's one example of how we would use that funding. And then the last project that's a new an improvement, I guess, is to update the Park System Master Plan. Last time we updated our Park System Master Plan was in the year 2000. We try to do that every 10 years, and Commission, I know that's been on our work plan for a couple of years now, so we want to get that started later on this year. Hope to go out for proposals to hire a consultant to help us through that process, and we should have somebody on board here this summer to begin the process of updating our Park System Master Plan. With that, Commissioners, I just want to point out that for the most part, the projects you see here are staff work. We have our engineers work on the bituminous projects, and we bid all those out. Council will approve them. The only projects that would come back to this group are the Lac La Vanne project, because it's fairly significant. So we will get your input on that. And then, of course, the Park System Master Plan update you will be involved in. But all other projects that are on this list will just move forward at a staff level. And ultimately, of course, Council approves any of those expenditures. So if you have concerns about proceeding with any of these projects, tonight would be the night to let staff know. If there is more information that you want about any of these projects moving forward, this would be the time to let staff know. But I think for the most part, again, the Lac La Vanne project will come back to you for more review in the Park System Master Plan. The other stuff is pretty much bituminous work and repairs. So what we're looking for is a recommendation from you to move forward with the Park CIP as presented, if you're so inclined. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners?
Yes, Terry, I was just wondering, you talked about there's a lot of resurfacing parking lots and trails being done this year. Is that normal to have that many come up at one time, or is that's because you've been putting things off because of the recession that we had? Or?
It is a little more than normal. I would say for the most part it's because we were putting things off. The other thing we're doing this year is we looked a little bit out a year or two, and if we were doing a parking lot in a park and the trail was scheduled to be done 2 years from now, we've done a better job of saying, rather than mobilize the equipment to bring them back out 2 years from now, let's lump those projects together. And so we did do a little bit of that also, Commissioner Stuber, and so that tended to put all of the bituminous work into 1 year. For example, I don't think we will do any large bituminous projects next year, other than there is some bituminous in the Lac La Vanne complex that will do as part of that project. But in terms of parking lots and trails, et cetera, we probably won't do any of that work in 2014. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering on that related to the not replacing that that building at the softball field, the
Lac La Vanne.
putting it off till next year. I thought maybe that must be why you're not doing it, because you're doing all this extra bituminous overlay. Is that
Correct, and it's really a combination of those factors, us having to postpone some things when the recession hit, us doing a better job of looking ahead now and saying, okay, maybe we should bring this project forward and consider postponing Lac La Vanne, and hopefully in the long run that will save the city some dollars.
That's all I have.
Any other questions? I have one question, Terry, if nobody else. So structure and building material, that's where we were focused on. This money was mostly allocated for the Lac La Vanne field, right?
Correct.
And then what we are proposing that is we'll do some of the work and then move this money into the concrete and resurfacing area.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we'll need to, the budget for replacing or renovating the concession stand Lac La Vanne restrooms was about $450,000. We're going to take about $350,000 of that and put it into bituminous work. We're going to take another $50,000 and use it to repair the courts at Neal. That wasn't in the plan going in, a year ago. And then we're going to take the remaining $50,000 and hire a consultant to start the design work. Understand those are estimates also. We hope when we bid these out, they'll come in a lot lower. Part of this could be us just being conservative. To be honest, we've gotten burned on rising fuel prices, and we haven't had enough. Last year we didn't estimate high enough, so we work with our engineering staff to do that, but we want to make sure that we're not underestimating this year. So potentially we could save more of that Lac La Vanne money. Again, it's money that gets rolled forward if we don't use it. So if we are able to save it, we will. It'll get rolled forward into next year's project money for that particular project.
Going to the same concept of bituminous, if I'm saying it right, there is $261,000 allocated for 2014. So that will come down in 2014, and then the structure and building, how are we going to fund that? Because in 2014 there is no money in there allocated for the building structure. So if you move these money out and do the bituminous work, how are we going to fund that next year?
The structures and building, the structure and building line item includes the bituminous work for the interior of Lac La Vanne. So that'll be included in the 2014 line item.
So 2014, I'm seeing $261,000 for bituminous work, but there's no money allocated as of now for structure and building. So how are we going to balance it? Because if you take all this money out here and move it up for bituminous work, which it's okay, but going forward in 2014, how are we going to balance it?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have the plan in front of me now. I see
Okay,
what
no
you're
problem.
looking at. So if you looked at the bituminous money that's in 2014, along with the fencing money, that's all money that was earmarked for Lac Lavon renovations the second year of it. Remember, it was going to be a 2013, 2014 project. So we will retain that, and we will use that to do that work at Lac Lavon. So the interior bituminous and the fencing and the scoreboards, they're all included in those line items. And then the 495 that you're seeing under 2013, of course, that's the money that we'll have to re-budget for in 2014.
So you'll,
And where we will get that is we'll have to move other projects back in years after that. 2014, 2015, other projects will have to get moved back.
okay.
And we haven't evaluated what all those will be at this point, but we'll bring that to you as part of next year's update. Mr. Chairman, the other part of that is we don't want to do, it's hard for us to do that assessment until we get actual bids in. I'm still hopeful that, we could be $100,000 lower than that.
So this is
Once
just
we
a-
have bids, we'll go through that work.
These are just a forecast.
Correct.
Best of your knowledge, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for doing the work. Really appreciate it. Thanks for, any other questions from the commission or
No?
anybody else?
I just want to say I like the bituminous resurfacing. I think it's a good idea.
It's kind of a no thrills kind of projects, but it's pretty important.
Yeah.
It's needed.
If you let bituminous go too far, you can actually have to spend a lot more money to bring it back. So if we're able to just mill and overlay, it saves us some money.
Sounds good. Is there a motion for that or?
Staff would request that the commission consider a motion approving the 2013 park projects as presented.
That's it. Like to create a motion?
I will make the motion to approve the park capital projects for 2013.
Second?
All of in favor say aye.
Aye.
Says no. Motion approved. Next is our miscellaneous items. Commissioners, any miscellaneous items not on the report? Not discussed? Staff, any miscellaneous item that you like to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could just share a few things. Chairman Raouf did present the 2013-2014 work plan to City Council on February 19th, and Council unanimously approved the work plan as presented. So I did send out a revised copy of that work plan in your packets. And I think Council members also want to express their appreciation for all the work that all of you do. Mr. Chairman, did I miss anything
No,
from that meeting?
You covered well. Thank you.
I also wanted to highlight, a few meetings ago, the commission suggested that staff modify our deer monitoring report, the form that's on the city's webpage, so where folks can report depredation and if they're seeing deer in a neighborhood. In the old system, you had to print off that form, fill it out, and either scan it in and send it back or mail it in to us. And you suggested that we make it available to fill out online, and I'm happy to report you can do that. You can check it out. It's under the Natural Resources Department, under the Deer Monitoring Program, and you can just fill that form out online and hit the button at the bottom and submit it to us at staff. So we did follow up on that.
Interesting to see if we get any more responses that way.
It will be, yeah. It's probably been up and running for a month and a half now. So, the only other note I would make is we do have our next meeting tentatively scheduled for April 1st. This is not an April Fool's joke. We are going to be at 6:30 p.m. on the 1st. That's all that staff has.
Well, this brings us to the end of our formal meeting. We are for this evening. Commissioner, would you like anything to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All of in favor say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Motion approved. And and good evening, and thank you for watching the National Park and Natural Resources Commission.